physician work in Dallas, Texas. I'm a pediatrician with a subspecialty in immunology, rheumatology. I've dealt with some epidemics, measles twice in Dallas, involved a little bit with the Ebola crisis, and then also some whooping cough that we had to close down a whole area for. I'm not a COVID-19 expert. I'm not an expert on pandemics. I think if anybody tells you they are, think twice. This is all new territory. And this is kind of what we're going through right now. Everybody's trying to learn, one, about this virus, and two, a pandemic. The last pandemic was 100 years ago. So with that, I think I want you to know that I delved in. What you're going to be presented with today is data, really facts, things that we know. If I vary from that, and you're going to hear me say, this is my belief, this is what I found in my writings, but maybe they're not recommending that, but the data's out there that looks good for this. So you're going to be hearing me say clearly what's pure fact and what is more assumption. So with that, I'm getting into move again. I'm having Zoom problems on my end, so I apologize. I'm going to have to give it back over to you because I can't move it. There you go. Okay. COVID-19 is what we're talking about. It's a respiratory virus. Remember that. That's the most important thing. And I wrote down a lot of your concerns because I think we can help you with some of them. Respiratory viruses, they all act the same, and they all really are transferred the same. And if we get to know how they do their infections, we can get to know how to protect ourselves. COVID-19 is a severe acute respiratory syndrome. That's what SARS stand for. It's not our first one. We had our first one about 10 years ago, maybe longer than that. So that's why we call it SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. Think of them interchangeably. SARS-CoV-2, we initially were calling the virus. COVID-19, we were calling the disease, but now we use them interchangeably. The fun thing note on this is I'm a science geek, so that virus particle, you see that little spike there? That's what everybody's making the vaccines against. That's the part that they think if they can get that, they can get you immune to it. So next slide. See, are you having problems? I don't see it yet. Okay, this is fun fact number 2. COVID-19, do you ever know where it came from? It is just a breakdown of what it is. It's coronavirus disease, and the year it began was the winter of 2019. Nothing fancy about it. Coronavirus disease, that's it. So with that, it's brand new. It is absolutely brand new. And let me tell you, new and improved is not good news when you're talking about viruses, because that means everybody on this planet is not immune to it. Everybody is susceptible, and that's scary. Also, we don't know information when it started. There's no history there, so we can't figure out how long incubation time is, what are the symptoms of that. So all this is brand new information that we've gathered over the last, I guess, 5 months now. Next slide. Okay, I said it's a respiratory virus, and that's what's important to know. It's one of many respiratory viruses. We have 5 months experience, and it's a SARS, and so we also have experience from previous SARS. That's where most of our data is going to be coming from. Other respiratory viruses, 5 months history, and SARS. Next slide. It's not moving. Are you seeing a change? Okay. Well, we just threw this in last night because as we were making slides, our governor came up with some new information in that. So we put this in. This is the latest and greatest for the indicators for King County moving into phase 2. You probably got the word. June 1st is not going to be when we're moving into phase 2. But this is really important information. We're not far from it. If you look down at all the indicators that we need to do, you either need to go below the red line or above it. And the first one that we're not matching is the amount of disease, but we're not far from it. We really aren't. We just need to get below that red line. Then all the green dots means we've already succeeded on those. Testing capacity, we can get there. We can get there for testing capacity. We're almost there. So I don't think we're going to be far from it. It is a time that we need to hunker down because we need to get our positive people down. I don't think the governor is going to let us open if we don't do it, and we're close to it. So, and we can put on the chat the link to that because that's a fun slide to really get to know and see where we are. Gives us indication where we can go. Next slide.
And in fact, it's already up on the chat. So if you guys want to grab that link, you can, so you can actually track that later if you want to do that. Go ahead, Mary. Next slide.
Telling everybody this is respiratory virus. We know the symptoms. It's fever over 100.4. The fever is very variable in people. Our resting temperature can be 98, some people are 99, some people are 97. 100.4 is a fever for everybody. So that's the cutoff that they've used. A cough, sore throat, difficulty breathing, chills, muscle pain, fatigue. The key one here is new loss of taste or smell. That is the one thing that I think we can hang our hat on for COVID-19. The other respiratory illnesses do not do that. So these are all the symptoms. Pretty much, if you got one of these symptoms, we want people to stay home. If they're a client of yours, if they have one of those symptoms, we don't want you going into the house. You can question people about this. These are key things. Don't really get in contact with these people if you have any one of those symptoms. Here's the big problem. When you are exposed to the virus, it has to incubate in your body and grow to a certain level that's when you start having symptoms. That's a prolonged period for COVID-19. And unfortunately, in that prolonged period, which may be up to 14 days, you can be spreading the virus. So the asymptomatic people are people who are growing the virus inside themselves. It's an incubation of the virus, who haven't had the symptoms yet, and unfortunately can be still spreading it around. Those are the people we're really going to be talking about, those asymptomatic carriers. Next slide. Okay. I put this slide in there because these are other respiratory viral illnesses. And you may have heard it from some people that, oh, it's just like the flu, COVID-19, or we've seen it before, or, you know, it really is. I mean, there are a lot of viral illnesses that affect the respiratory tree that act very similar. Fever, cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, malaise, aches and pains. They all do it the same. Those are the symptoms. What makes these different are, when they're different viruses, the flu is an influenza, COVID-19 is a coronavirus, then SARS is another coronavirus. They act differently in the body. One of the big concerns I have is if you look at the R, there's a 0, it's called an R naught number, N-A-U-G-H-T, R naught. That means how easy it is to infect other people, how easily it is to be spread. Flu is about 1.3, and that means that if you had 100 people with the illness, you'll probably get 130 people, more people to get it. COVID-19, they're still working on. That's why there are asterisks on those. Those are numbers that are going to get tightened up as we get more data. It's up to 2.5. That's almost twice. That means if you had 100 people, you have 250 people now with the illness. You keep multiplying that out and you can see where flu is much easier to contain than COVID-19. The second reason this is hard to contain is look at the incubation period. If you get the flu, it's about 1 or 2 days where you're incubating it and you get down 1 to 4 days, where you get the illness and then you get the symptoms. You don't have a long incubation period at all for the flu. And when you get the flu, there's not this muckiness about it that COVID-19 has. You are hit by a Mack truck, you are down for the count, and you're at home. That's great, because at home is where you're supposed to be if you have the flu. You need to be recuperating from it, resting from it, and keeping from infecting other people. COVID-19 has a mucky incubation period of 4 to 14 days. It means not only can you be incubating it for those days, but when you do get symptoms, you know, we said all of the classic ones, but you may have sinus issues. You may have just lost a taste and smell that you may not even pick up. So it's not a clearly defined illness that the flu is. When you get the flu, you know it. When you get COVID-19, a lot of times you think, do I have it? Do I not have it? You know, should I be tested? And all that means is, one, you're not taking care of yourself then, and two, you're spreading it around even more, because if you don't know you have it, you're not as good about keeping away from other people. So these are important things. The other thing, if we're comparing it against the other respiratory illnesses, you see the case fatality for flu is up to 0.1%. COVID looks like it's around 3%. And I'm just happy we don't have MERS, because it's 34. A third of the people die of MERS. So there are some good things about COVID-19, but doggone it, could have been a little better. Next slide. I'm sorry, there's a pause here because I still don't see the slide. Okay, keep hitting home about is a respiratory illness. It's because there's only one way you can transmit a respiratory illness, and that is through droplets. It has to be from your cavity. It has to be either from the nose, sneezing, from the cough. It's the upper part. It's not even the lower part of the tree. It's the upper part. And a sick person has to be putting it out into the environment. Now, because of the droplets, you can pick it up two different ways. You can pick it up in the air. Somebody coughs and you breathe it in. They can be talking and you can breathe it in, or they could even be yelling at you and you can breathe it in. Direct contact, it's if those droplets fall down to your surface and then you touch that droplet and put it up to your face, your mouth, your nose, your eyes. Initially, you heard everyone saying, happy birthday song, wash your hands that long, and don't touch your face or your hands and eyes. Don't touch your face. Then you heard kind of a moving toward, okay, social distancing, 6 feet apart, and let's wear a face mask. And that's because they found out the size of the particle that is being dropped. COVID-19 is kind of in the medium range. We're lucky it's not real tiny, because then it's not airborne for a prolonged period of time, but it's not real large either. Real large ones just drop right down. You don't even get a chance to bring it in through your breathing and through airborne. It's all through touching and putting it to your face. So when you're going into someone's home, and if they are not present, you really need to think about direct contact. That's where you put all your money. Don't touch your face. You know, if you want to put a sneeze guard on so you can't touch your face, if you want to continually wash your hands so you keep your hands clean, that's the key. Think about this when you're in contact or when you're in a situation. Am I worried about airborne, or I'm worried about direct contact? There was a question along the line of wearing a face mask when you're cleaning the house. If they're out of the place and you're not aerosolizing these particles, then you probably could go without your face mask. But if you're in the presence of them, you have to have a face mask on. So I'm pushing for why you know it's droplets and how you know each one. You can do it airborne or direct contact, because it's going to really tell you what you can get by with and what you need to remember in what situation. Our data is showing now it's less easily contracted through direct contact and more through airborne. That's kind of why you've heard people say social distancing and wear a face mask. I'm still saying you need to worry about direct contact. You have to. But I think it's more important if you think about airborne. Next slide. Okay, it's amazing what yelling and sneezing and coughing, how it can get out in the air. So I'm going to tell people not to yell. Talk softly. the softer you talk, the better it is, because the less you receive out into the, you putting out into the air. And if people are talking to you, the softer, the less they're going to be putting out in the air. If someone is coughing or sneezing, they should be doing it in something, a tissue, and then right into a trash can. And they should be home and taking care of themselves and out of the population. This is just, it's amazing. A cough, 50 miles an hour, a sneeze, 200 miles an hour. Can you imagine that? So breathing is just as important, because we feel safer when people are just breathing around us. And I want you to know the size of the particle, you are not safe around people who are just breathing in front of you. You need to be wearing a mask. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Okay, so we talked about there's two ways to get these droplets. One is through airborne, one is through direct contact, direct transfer. How do you decrease airborne? First way, and we put a big line here. If you're sick, stay at home. If you're coughing and you have a sneeze or a cough or that, you have allergies, still you may have the virus incubating in you. Keep tissues wherever you go. I think that's so important. Let's, you know, you see somebody going, give them a tissue. That's going to stop that 200 miles an hour. And that's really important. So if anybody has any symptoms, hopefully you're not in contact with them. They're at home. So our main concern are people that have the virus without symptoms. This is where I think we bring in wear a mask. You're wearing a mask so that you can't give the virus to anybody else. If you talk softer, you can't give the virus because you've got a barrier. It's just a barrier. It's a good barrier though, and it really does work. Social distancing, 6 feet is what we're saying, and that's because they tested the size of the particle, and really when someone is speaking, how far can it get thrown into the air? If you have to be inside the 6-foot line, I'm going to tell you, wear a mask. Wear a mask. I think it's really important to do. The next two are not recommendations from the guidelines. We'll call them Mary's freebies. I think they're going to be, so here you go. Limit the time you're with somebody and consider the airflow that you're in. So wear a face mask, think about social distancing, limit your time, and consider airflow. And we're going to discuss each one. Next slide. Okay, here's a picture of, this is the size of the particle, and it's not large, it's not small, aerosol, it's medium size, and if you're breathing, they go about 4.5 feet. That's why we're saying if you can stay 6 feet or away from somebody or better, the better chance you have. If you're sneezing, you need to be 20 feet or more away. Trust me, you don't want to be around somebody who's sneezing who didn't protect themselves. So 6 feet. This is somebody without a face mask. Put a face mask on and the numbers decrease drastically. Face mask can look in any different shape or way or possible. They work, they do. Get the one that you'll wear, the one that fits most comfortably on your face. If it's a bad fit and it rubs, that's not the one for you. You want something that you feel comfortable wearing. The one on the top left, the guy with the clear, it's called a sneeze guard. I like those, especially if you're like me. I'm really trying not to use my hands today. I have allergies. Keeping my hands out of my face is really, really hard. Put a sneeze guard on me, and every time I hit that plastic thing, it reminds me, oh yeah, not supposed to be there. So think of these things. Sometimes they can benefit you two ways. One, to protect giving the virus to somebody else. Another, to keep my hands away from my face. Next slide. Sorry, you can probably hear my dog. Okay, so we talked about 6 feet and we talked about face guards, face cloths. This is my time thing. This is 2 people having a cup of coffee. So you're not wearing a face mask because you're having a cup of coffee, probably within 6 feet. Maybe you could be 6 feet away. If you are infected and we're having coffee and you're breathing out 1,000 particles in each breath, and I'm taking in 1,000 particles each breath, and I breathe in once, I'm probably not going to get the illness, because the viral load to create an illness for me, for my body to be overwhelmed and to get it, is probably more than 10,000. So we're probably safe if I took one breath in front of you. What happens if I take 10 breaths while you're breathing? Now 10 times 1,000 is, I now have a successful viral load and I can have the illness. Time is really important here because it's cumulative. And if you can decrease the amount of time that you're in front of somebody, you can really decrease your risk of exposure, because you have to, your body has to hit a maximum viral load to get the illness. And if you can keep it below that, you're much safer off. So that's my little piece, is if you can decrease the time face to face, especially if you don't have a face mask, it's really helpful. Think viral load equals exposure to virus and time spent. Next slide. I'm sorry, that's my dog in the background if you hear it. This is real life circumstances. Okay, low volume means low volume viral load in short time. This is called a four-square chart. Where you want to live is in the lower left-hand corner. Where you want to stay away from, the highest risk, is in the upper right-hand corner. So low volume, short time, supermarket. It's really showing very, very, very clearly that supermarkets are a pretty safe place to be. Nobody's picking up at walking past joggers or brief encounters. Just, hi, how you doing? God, you move on. The next one, where your high volume, say I'm someone who's collecting nasal samples, I have a high risk. If somebody's positive, I got a high volume if I even take one breath. So you want to really do it and get out of there and keep your exposure low. So decrease the time on high volumes. Now you go up to the long time, low volume. This is your choir practice, your restaurants, your weddings, your funerals, your workspace, your church. These are people who are asymptomatic. If they do have the illness, they're not high load of viruses, they're a low load, but you're spending a long time in front of them. And we know this because we'll show you choir practice in the restaurants where they've gotten ill from this. It's just, you're not in and out of there with one breath. You're there for over an hour or more, and that's what's the worst. Okay, long time, high volume, that's your hospitals. You know you got positive patients, or you've got somebody in the house with the illness. That's where your long-term high volume and your risk is really skyrocketed, and you're going to be in the highest load protective wear. Next slide. Oh, you had it. Okay, airflow. So I added on time, and now I'm telling you about airflow. When I showed you the slide in the past where they were having coffee, they were directly face to face, you know, right in your face, directly in front. If I'm breathing, my breath is going directly into you. You're going to take it in. If I can parallel, which is what these two are doing, so she's like talking to the right side of her and the other one's talking to the left side of her, you can still see some facial expressions in that, but your airflow is going to be going by them. Again, that's going to be decreasing your risk because you're not taking that force of the virus dead on. So we tease, I said, you know, we could put on a face mask, you know, you get out of my face, because that's going to decrease your risk and their risk. So parallel talking is best. Also, outside airflow is better than inside. Anytime you're inside an enclosed space, you've got more risk of exposure. Next slide.
Mary, for people who are going into people's homes, would it be then a good idea to open windows to improve airflow?
Well, you got to watch where the airflow is going. If you're going to be right in front of that window and it's going to be going right past you, probably not. If you can get out of the direct line of the flow, yes, because then it's creating more of a turbulence. Okay, here's a good study that was done. They did a follow-up. Somebody was having a lunch, I believe it was, at a table. They were asymptomatic. They came out with symptoms thereafter their lunch. You can see it's the one, patient 0. Everybody who's a red dot got the illness. when they researched why did those of everybody in the room, the blue lines are the airflow, which you can't see if you've got everybody's photo up. To the right says that's the air conditioning unit was pushing the flow right past them. So you notice anybody outside the airflow was pretty safe, but you increase your risk when you're outside the airflow. So if you can sit, both of you looking at the same thing, if you can jig jog it, if you can if you have to go past somebody and you know you're less than 16 feet, do it back to back. Just do a turnaround and the more you can stay away from the direct flow and the time spent in somebody's direct line of breathing, coughing, talking, the better you are. And again, that is not the current CDC's, that's mine. Next slide. Okay, this is a good one because it's a study of a workplace. Workplaces are enclosed. You've got movement of air. All the blue ones are positives. You can see where the airflow was going and higher risk of those people who got it. Next. So studies have been really clear about airflow. Okay, so those were all airborne diseases. Those are all, it has to come directly from the person and you're taking it in and putting it down into your lungs. So what's your other way you can get it? The droplets can fall down onto a surface, you can pick it up and you can put it in your face. So how do you decrease direct transfer that way? Next slide. Okay, don't touch your face. That is so easy to say. It's so hard to do. Infected material is transferred to your system. You really are taking it in your nose, eyes, and mouth. Infected particles can also transfer from your mouth to the nose. So not touching your face is good. Having a mask kind of helps that. It covers up those areas and also reminds you when you go to touch. So not touching your face is a good thing. And any way we can think of doing it. The other day I was chopping up a ton of garlic. And all of a sudden, the eyes were itching. So I went to do it. Oh my God, I got this whiff of garlic that was so awful. And I thought, oh my God, this is what I need to do. Every time I need to have garlic all over my hands so it doesn't want to come close to my face with that odor. So I'm serious, anything we can do. Okay, the other thing is because we do have our hands to our face, we do touch highly touchable surfaces that somebody else might have contaminated. You want to either wash your hands or sanitize. I know I've been asked, does anybody have a preference? Do you want a soap and water? Do you want to sanitize? Do you think one is better than the other? Any questions, concerns about these? Okay, you know what? They're not equal. Washing with soap and water appropriately is so much better than hand sanitizer. So if you're going in someone's home and they offer you some disinfectant or you have a hand sanitizer, ask if you can go to the restroom and wash your hands. It is so much better at getting the virus off your hands. These studies have been done with, they call it FlowGel or FlowGerm. And it's just some fluorescent substances that they put on your hands. We've done sanitizer, we do soap and water, we do all different things with it, and soap and water is the key. Next one.
Okay, Mary, we have a quick question about airflow. Jennifer, would you like to ask your question? Because you're concerned about the exhaust from the vacuum cleaners. That's a great question.
Yeah. Great, thank you for that. So, I'm thinking about airflow. If we're going in, we're masking up, we're checking in with the client. I've got a whole host of oh my God, clients being honest with us that I'm going to bypass that part. So we're in the home, we're vacuuming, and so there's exhaust coming from our vacuum cleaners. Now we use almost exclusively canister vacuum cleaners, so it's down low. But still, nonetheless, if we're vacuuming up and we use really intense HEPA filters as well as allergen bags on all of our, so there's about 3 filters that those particles are running through. And so what I'm hearing from you, that would probably arrest any large infected particles that we might pick up, which makes me wonder, you know, I've been thinking that we probably should change our bags and our filters in between every house if we moved forward with work. Does that make sense to you?
Changing the bags is wise in between homes. I think your risk is on the lower end. One is you're vacuuming up floors and not highly touchable surfaces. This is a particle that has more of a stickiness to it because it likes to be in fluid. It's not alive. Viruses aren't alive. They need our cells to survive. The data on how long it can last on some surfaces is really, we need to get better data, and they're working on that. I think I don't know how you could be any safer than you're doing. You may be told later on you're overdoing it. I think without having knowledge, I would say overdo it now, but I think you're right on the right track of you've got all the bases covered. And I have read everything I can find on this, and I have not found through vacuum cleaners or floors that has been infected people.
Okay.
And
great,
Mary,
thank
would
you.
having a HEPA filter in your mask also help?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to jump a few, and you don't need to move the slides, but you're talking about aerosolizing stuff on the floor. One of the ones I'm really concerned about is aerosolizing stuff in the restroom, because it has been found in stool samples. And we do know that when you flush, things get aerosolized in the air. And that's a substrate that the virus likes to be a little more survivable in, is liquid and that. So flush the toilet with the lid down. And this is why you kind of now are into two realms. You're talking about direct transfer, and then you're aerosolizing it and taking it in the lungs. So in the bathroom, I would always have a mask on and try to really stay away from when you're cleaning toilets and that, so you don't increase the aerosolization. Keep the lid down when you're doing it, when you're flushing it. So clean and disinfect. Boy, can we say this too much? Everything as frequently as possible. With that being said, it's not lasting as long as we think, and time. Remember how I said time? Use time for your aerosol, for your airborne things. Also use time. The longer this house hasn't been occupied, the longer a bathroom hasn't been used, the less infectious it is. And we're talking probably a day to 3 days. Well, nothing could survive that. So it's looking good, and I think they're going to clean up those numbers.
So, Mary, just thinking about like Airbnbs and things like that, do you recommend that there's a delay before people come in clean? Is that something that people should consider?
I would use it to my advantage. Say that you have somebody leaving on a Friday and the next person isn't coming till Wednesday. Don't clean it until Tuesday. Protect yourself, because the longer that place stayed untouched, the less chance you have becoming infected by it. Now, doing 24-hour turnaround time, I think is really hard for Airbnbs, because then you have to go in there, you have to clean all the surfaces, and that it can be done. And you now know that you should go in mask and that if you're cleaning surfaces, because you don't want to touch your face with anything. And then you can take it off maybe if you're doing other things in cleaning. I know that was a concern, being in a mask all the time. There are times you can take it off and be safe, not when you're in presence of another person.
And
So
Mary, go ahead. I was just going to say another question that kind of relates to this is gloves. A lot of questions came up in our roundtable discussions about, well, if you wear gloves, is that help with the direct contact piece? Could you just talk to that a little bit, please?
Well, your gloves can transfer things just as your hands can. So If your gloves touch something and then you touch something else, you're transferring it to that thing. If your gloves touch your face, you're transferring it. So gloves are important because I know if I'm in gloves, I'm not touching my face as much. And it tells me I'm in the cleaning mode and stay in that mode and not doing anything else. So use gloves, but use them knowing that I can still transfer something from my gloves from one to another. That's a direct transfer, but it's less frequent. Here's the thing that we used to do. You know how if you're using bare hands, you wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. When you have gloves, you don't wash them as frequently. That's not a good thing. That means your gloves haven't been cleaned that frequently. So I'm going to tell you, if you have gloves on, it's okay to wash your hands with your gloves on, because that's taken all the virus off your gloved hands, and now your gloves are clean again. Do you know what I'm saying? Don't think I have gloves on, now I can spend the whole day scrubbing down the house, because you might have moved a virus from one area to another. Where if you do the kitchen, wash your hands, even if they have gloves on them, then go to the next room. Do that room, wash your hands, even with or without gloves, and then do the next room. You don't have to change gloves, just keep washing them on your hands.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do we know how long the virus lasts on plastic, paper, doorknobs? A lot of people have been asking me that, kind of to tell me that we don't know anything, and it's true, we don't know. We do know it can last on paper, plastic, and doorknobs. It has transferred to people that way. We found out there's been house cleaners in hospitals who had no direct contact to patient, and they've gotten the illness through that. But this is a high concentration of direct particles that they picked up, not somebody who is asymptomatic. That data is being worked on right now. We think paper maybe is a day, plastic probably 2 to 3. Again, use time as your benefit. If mail comes in, let it sit a day. If you got something plastic, you got something from, I don't know, Amazon, and it came in something plastic, let it sit some time. I'm gonna be honest, this disease is really being transmitted through airborne. It is airborne. We're not seeing much through direct contact. Okay. Guidance for your workers or customers or any social contacts. This is important. Remember the symptoms. If they have the symptoms, your staff need to stay at home. If they've experienced any of these symptoms in the last 14 days, they need to stay at home. If they've come in contact with anybody experiencing these symptoms in the last 14 days, they really should be staying at home. And this is getting quite clear that this is going to be the King County guidelines. What's important if you're going into someone else's home, you can ask them that. If you're going into someone's home and they said, oh yeah, I had a fever of 101, but that was Monday and today's Thursday, I'm feeling better. I'm gonna say I wouldn't go in that house. I would want them still quarantined, and you really need to protect yourself and your employees. This is, you treat your employees and yourself just like you would want other people to treat you, and that is so important, to protect yourself against somebody else who may be shedding or spreading the virus. So those people, I'm going to tell you, if you're going into people's homes, I wouldn't enter into someone's home if they've had the symptoms, if they have the symptoms, or if they've been in contact with somebody who has or has had the symptoms in the last 14 days. So now you're talking about just people who are asymptomatic. Probably everybody who's on this webinar right now. We don't have any symptoms. We feel pretty good. It's a beautiful day out there, but you should consider everybody that you see as having someone who is infected and may be able to spread the virus. This is how you're going to protect yourself. We want everybody that is high risk to be at home. We want everybody to think of everybody else who's out and about, who's feeling fine, to be considered as positive. So if we consider them as incubating and able to spread, we want everybody wearing a mask, and we want everybody obeying the 6-foot guidelines. We want to think about the time we're spending in front of them and how can we kind of move the airflow in our benefit. Next. This is how this virus is spreading. It's going to be spreading from those people who are asymptomatic. So when you're deciding how to build your principles for your organization, you need to focus, how do I decrease the risk of spreading this illness, acquiring this illness? First, you keep anybody who's possibly having the illness out of the picture. And everybody else, you consider them as an incubator for and able to infect somebody. So you follow the guidelines as well as we can. Does that mean you're going to be inside the 6 foot range with somebody? Yes, you will sometime be in that 6 foot range. What's the best way to do it? Always with a face mask. Don't ever be inside a 6 foot range without a face mask. Can you do it by jig jogging to the side and not doing directly in front? Can you do it by being side to side and not talking in each other's face? Next line.
Sorry, Mary. There you go.
It's me. Okay, so for you and your employees, how can you help people? How can you help your customers even? Sit down and set the rules. Be clear, no exceptions. Make it a habit. Put the signs up. Let everybody know these are my rules. By having that for your employees, you're telling them, I value you. You know, I know it's hard. It's hard to tell people no because they're going to be banging at your door. But I just need a haircut. It's so bad. I'm fine. You value your health.
I just need a clean house.
I do. I know that feeling. But set those rules and just say, you know, I value your health. I value my health. I value my employees' health. And these are how we're playing the game right now.
And so, Mary, for people who don't have like a storefront, would you recommend that they include it in an email that goes out when they're confirming?
Absolutely.
Or put it up on their website, or both, or have a survey that they send out each time?
If I'm a housekeeper and I'm going to someone's house, I would consider sending them a question or an email the day before, if you have that ability, if they have email, and just saying, you know, we'd love to clean your house. We enjoy doing it, but can you give us the verification that you do not have these symptoms, haven't been in contact with anybody with these symptoms, and go from there. If and I heard you say loud and clear, people don't want to leave the home when you're there. Wow. You know, that's how you're going to pick it up a lot of times, person to person. So I would, if they have to and you have to work with them in that way, move them from room to room, keep them out of the room you're in. Maybe that's the way you can do it. Also ask them to do a temperature check. Most people are now are doing thermometers. If you're doing it, do a touchless one on your employees. But the reason 100.4 has come about as the criteria is temperatures for people are all over the place for our normal temperatures, 98, 99, 97, they could all be normal. 100.4, nobody's normal. But 100.4, people can walk around with 100.4 and not know it. So if you're testing somebody at 100.4, they need to go home. Does it mean that person doesn't have the illness? No. It just means you're a higher risk if you do have 100.4. So if you get them out of the scenario, then you can deal with everybody else with no temperature. So 100.4 is a good breaker. Wash hands. You want them to be washing hands. You want to be washing hands, and you want to tell them, you know, I'm going to be, the minute I walk in your door, I'm going to be washing my hands because this is the way to do it. The other thing is empower people through education. If you have employees, if you have staff, if you have people's homes you're going into, the more information you can give them, you're telling them, I care about you. I've gotten educated on this. This is why we're doing it. I'm not trying to be ugly about this. We just want to keep, we want to keep Vashon open. I want to keep doing this, and I want to keep everyone well. Next. This is a good one because I saw this happen and I'm a little concerned. If you have employees and you have a place of business, and you're doing temperature checks or doing health questionnaires, don't have them come inside to have their temperature checked or have to fill out a health questionnaire inside. They have to do it outside. You want to keep your area of business or your home or any situation free of any chance of having the virus. That's why send it as an email to the homes that you're going into so they can fill it out and send it back to you. Also, it's a commitment on their part. And it, you know, and I heard someone say that there's some concern of the truthfulness of this, of the answers. That's a hard thing to say. I don't know a way to get around it. I would hope people would value everybody to be truthful with the answers.
So that would be also applying if you were traveling to a site together in the car, you would actually do the check before the person got in the car.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just need 1 second. Steve, can you get Corey out? He's really mad, and he's been telling us. My dog. I'm sorry.
What's dinner time? Come on.
Real life, right? Okay, next slide. Okay. This bathrooms are a bugaboo. And the reason they're so hard is because I'm going to tell you, we do not have good data about this. They're working on it now. But consider all the highly touchable surfaces, everything that you've known about in the past that can carry germs. Yes, you really want to keep cleaning those surfaces because anything that you touch can transfer. It's known that the bathroom door knob is the #1 bacteria and virus catcher. And so what I tell people, and I would recommend to y'all, is you have paper towels or tissues. When you go into a bathroom, either clean it before you even touch that door or take a paper towel or a napkin and hold it onto the door handle, open the door, throw it away in the trash can in there, and then do your business. Then when you're leaving and you're washing your hands, take another towel, paper towel or that, open the bathroom door, walk out, put it outside in another trash can out of there. Then you're keeping that as clean as possible. You didn't put any germs in there and you didn't pick up anybody's germs from that. Trash cans are such a benefit. If you can add trash cans, even when you're cleaning around the house so that you can do that, you can just toss them into trash cans. My last 10 years, I was medical director over a couple units at Baylor, and having trash cans outside the bathrooms, everybody one day kept moving them, and I want them inside and outside so that when you go in, you take a towel, you throw it inside the bathroom. On the outside, when you're coming out, you open up the door with a paper towel. You don't want to touch that door handle right when you washed your hands. You want to keep your hands clean. Touch it with a towel, open up the door, throw it on the outside bathroom trash can, and you can keep it clean. It really does decrease the transfer. And let me tell you, bacterial, viral, everything. One of the concerns unique about the bathrooms right now is we have found, or it has been found, viral load in, or viral pieces in stool. Is it a partial piece? Are they infectable pieces? We're not sure. That's what I said. Fragmented pieces, we're not sure. And they're doing research on it. But if it is possible and you're flushing, you can get aerosolization from that. And that's taking a direct transfer into an aerosolized one. If at all possible, flush that toilet with the lid down. That's my recommendation. Really try to do that. It's going to be data that we're going to have better on in the future, but right now, I hate telling you we don't know, but we don't really know. I have a feeling if you're asymptomatic, your stool's not going to be that high of a concentration, so it's not going to be an issue. But you don't know if somebody was symptomatic in that house. You just told me. So treat it as if it's a possible contaminant. Okay.
And so before people go into people's homes, should they, as part of their survey, ask them just to wipe down some of the key door handles before people get there, or have available to wipe?
If I was Rachel, I might take some Clorox wipes with me. If you're not sure if they're doing it, just use it as you walk in, or use that a tissue as you walk in, because you don't want to pick up from them.
So what about children, Mary?
They're cute. I'm a pediatrician. I like them. Unfortunately, this is a talk not about daycare centers or camps or anything. So we're talking about adult activities, in that you have to treat a child as you would treat an adult. They need to be wearing a mask, and they need to not be touching anything, and they need to be under the control of their parent or significant caretaker. So it's a hard thing to say, but kids can spread it. We know kids can be asymptomatic spreaders, and they're all over the place, you know. That's what they do. So some places they should just not be around, or if they are around, really watch carefully. Dogs, it's another one. We don't have a lot of good knowledge about dogs. It has been found, the virus, in dog saliva. It is assumed that if it's in the saliva, they could possibly get the viral illness. However, if it's in the dog's saliva, they could be spreading the illness. And if you're like my two dogs, they do not wear masks well. So consider dogs a really good spreadable concern. So I love my dogs, but leave them at home.
Or if you're going into somebody's home, ask that the dogs be put away.
Absolutely. I also think dogs should be on leash right now. Really, we just don't have the data. Maybe in a month we can say, okay, we don't have to worry about dogs. But I'm to that point where if I don't know, we got to protect against it, because this, depending on who you are and comorbidities, this could be a life or death situation. How do you address your employees and customers? This is a big one. What about customers or patrons or that who don't want to follow the guidelines? It's hard. It really is, because your job is to make people happy, to make people like their haircut, to Rachel, to make my house look much prettier than it is, to really you're giving something positive to somebody's life. When you're telling them no, it goes against your inner core. But this is above that. And so my advice is, when you need to get people to follow the guidelines, come down and have a pat answer, something you're comfortable with. If it's me and somebody, if I'm working at Ruby Brink and they come in and they say, I'm fine, I don't need to wear a face mask, and our policy was a face mask, I would have my line and I'd say, for my health, for my family's health and friends, and for your health, we have made the policy that everyone here needs to be wearing a face mask. If they buck up against you again and say, I'm fine, I don't need a face mask, don't argue with them. Your job is to keep everybody well, keep yourself well. So you're not going to win this. Your next line has to be, I would love to serve you. I would love to offer you what I have, but right now it's only under this guideline of wearing a face mask. And can I offer you to go, or something like that? Come up with something you can say that you feel comfortable with. And as before you go to bed, and I kind of review it in your head, so you don't get feeling guilty or I'm just a one-off, or that you stay firm. Your employees are going to love you because they realize how you value them. And I think the next line is, what about your other clients or customers who saw that and now they want to leave because they saw that other people aren't obeying? They're going to stick with you. They're going to stay with you because they understand that you're trying to keep everybody safe. They're also going to be, if they were at the Ruby Brink and I was working there, they're not going to be leaving. If I let that person stay without a face mask, you're going to have some people leaving. And I think it's important. Stay consistent. Stay really online. Don't argue. And y'all work with customers all the time. You know, it's hard. And they're going to push you to the limit. But you've got to put your feet in some concrete and stay firm for your own sake. Next line. Okay. when you're thinking about your protocols for your business and everything, there's really, I love this slide, 3 key ways, except don't shake hands. You need employee to employee interaction. How are your employees interacting? This might not go for you. You might not have employee to employee interactions, or you may have it a big time where they need to talk to each other. If they do need to talk to each other, how do they do it safe as possible? Then you have your employee customer interaction. What is the steps you're going through for their interaction? You know, also customer, you know, maybe you don't have it here, but if they're waiting in line to go in a store, you need to have 6-foot distancing so your customers aren't interacting. But these are the key ways that we were thinking. How do you decrease droplet transfer by droplet contamination by direct transfer or by airborne, and between employee to employee, employee to customer, and customer to customer. And this is,
Great.
I think, is the best part, because this is when we open it up. We want to hear your questions, how we can help you, because it's really been a pleasure to try to put this together, because I love this island, and it's because of what y'all do that I like this island so much. So if I can maybe help somebody out here, that's what we're here for. Okay.
And everybody should have gotten the worksheet, and we sent the worksheet out to sort of help people put together their plans. And the reality of the situation, all of you have been thinking about this a lot. So you already have things in place. Like I'm watching in the chat, people talking about surveys they're using, things that they're thinking about, measures they're taking. But what we were hoping is, as during today's kind of talk, that things would pop into your head, you would learn more, and you'd think about new ways to kind of approach things or modify what you've already thought of. So we put together a nice worksheet for your use that also could meet the requirements for reopening for the county, to talk about what are your employee expectations if you've got employees, and what measures are you taking. And by writing this down, these are things that are easy for you to communicate. Also, how are you making sure that there are appropriate boundaries between your employees and your customer or your clients? And how are you setting that sort of expectation? And then also for customers, whether it's customers to customers, or in the case of maybe if you're working with contractors, how are you working with contractors? And then your workplace, what are you doing to adapt that for safety? So we've put this together just for you to jot down ideas and to think about how you're managing things differently. But I know that what we'd really love to do is open it up for questions. And I saw Rachel's question in there about how do you, when you're in a home, Mary, how can you help sort of keep that 6-foot distance? And we were laughing a little bit in the chat because, well, there was a restaurant that actually put noodles, swim noodles. And then also I've seen one where somebody put mannequins at the tables in a restaurant. But what do you do if you're cleaning homes or doing interiors? I think for cleaning homes, asking people not to be there makes a whole heck of a lot of sense. But what if somebody has to be there? What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. Get them out of the room if possible. But if you're like Rachel or that, you can't get them out of the room. So because you're trying to get ideas and things like that. 6 foot is really important. Get you used to how much 6 feet is. Really mark it off at home first and get comfortable with your feeling. Is it the length? You know, is it twice of my arm? How do you judge it? A lot of times people don't have a good judge. So you're going to be the one that needs to be moving aside, moving away. Or if they're coming at you, move to the side so you're not in the direct path. Have a face mask on. The face masks really are there. I don't want to say you don't need to use them if you're outside the 6 foot criteria, but they're really for inside the 6 feet criteria. That's where it really does the best benefit. Now, if someone's coming at you and you have a face mask on, you're helping them, they're not helping you. So again, come up with a line, you know, just say, I like being here. I'm really enjoying doing this. This is a great project. I need to make sure I have 2 young children. Can you help me stick with 6 feet apart, you know, and just engage them in the process. Again, don't say you need to do this. Say, I have 2 children. I need to stay well for them. Can you help me with this? Hopefully they're going to do it. If they're still in your face, well, that's somebody who's really not thinking about others. They're thinking about you. You know, we're in the kits, you're going to have face masks. If they don't have a face mask, hand it to them, you know, give it to them. So they say, you know, if we have to be this close, could we both put on a face mask to make sure that we both keep each other safe?
Thank you, Mary. We've got another question here. Do you have any suggestions or thoughts on disinfecting soft goods like upholstered furniture, bedding, pillows, things like that?
The dryer is excellent. If you can throw things in a dryer, the virus does not like high heat. Really, and I don't want to get people over confident, but these are not surfaces that are highly contagious. They just aren't, unless it's something moist and wet on it, and then you don't want touching it anyway. There isn't a spray that'll do it without possibly damaging the surface. What I've told people in the past, soft goods like that, if you can find a big trash bag, a new one, and put it in and use time in your favor, keep it there for 3 days. We've probably overcalled it for 3 days, but that would make it safe after that.
That's great.
For
And then
Dawn,
I guess if you're all
yeah, can I ask, is Dawn still on? Your question about that, what's your time turnaround you need to do for those soft goods?
Dawn, yeah, there you are.
Sorry, I had to unmute. It can vary, but generally I can try to keep it in a storage area for, you know, a minimum of a couple of days, and then, you know, anything beyond that.
Yeah.
So but I'm just thinking if it was someone else's furniture that I'm not taking with me and I'm just in their house, then I just, you know, there's not much I can do. Like I can disinfect their table or their door handles, but not necessarily their sofa that I might need to touch or their chair that I might need to move or something.
You know, if it's all upholstery, it's pretty low risk. If it's leather or something like that, it's a higher risk, and then I would wipe it down.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Would you have, when you were talking about the having a handkerchief or a tissue with you at all times for opening doors, could you do something like that where you have a handkerchief that you just pull out to grab that item, Dawn?
Absolutely. And the reason I'm saying a tissue over putting gloves on is because when you have a tissue, you use it, throw it in your trash. With gloves, you're moving it from one place to another place to another place. If there was something contaminating on there. So absolutely. I love tissues. I think they work, and I think we need to have more trash cans and tissues around the place because I think it could help us.
Great. Other questions that folks have, you're welcome just to go off mute and ask your question. If you have other questions about your specific business that you'd like to talk about.
I also see a question here. We imagine we treat a client's bathroom as a public restroom. Yep, if at all possible, try to do that. You know, use your restroom before you leave the house and try to do it. However, that's not always going to be the case. We know that you get caught. So use the best precautions you can, especially if it's like, if Rachel, you don't have cleaning supplies with you. I'd throw some those little packages of wipes in your purse, some Clorox wipes to make the bathroom as most sanitizing as you can. I was on the ferry the other day, and I was on the first level all the way down to the front, and they've opened up the bathrooms on the first level for people to use the bathrooms. I think they're initially employee bathrooms. So they keep the door open, so you know as people are going in and out. And I'm just sitting in the car, so I'm watching. 5 people went in and out of that bathroom without it being cleaned in between. So I would keep some sanitizing and some cleaning wipes on hand in your car too.
Right. And a couple things that we will be sending out after the meeting is a link to sort of where you can reorder supplies that we have that has been up on the Vashon Chamber site. And of course, the link to that chart dashboard is also in the chat, but we'll also send that link out to you after the call. And then Rachel, I know you've put together a very nice survey. Would you be willing to share that with people that they could
I'd be
then
happy to
adapt?
share that. Yeah, if anyone wants to see that survey, I also have put together a blog post for my clients that I'm now thinking I'm going to link to that from the survey, so that they can see what my safety protocol is as well. So I think it's really important to communicate all of that up front. And now I'm like jotting down all these things to add to the questionnaire, but but yeah, if anyone puts their email in, I'd be happy to send. Unfortunately, it's a part of my software, so I have to just kind of print a PDF version of it, but you can feel free to steal all my questions, all my verbiage. I'm good with it.
Nice of you to share. Thank you. That's really nice. Does anybody else have any other questions or any areas they'd like? So just to kind of get to the wrap up, and I just really appreciate everybody hanging on. I hope this has been helpful. You know, I guess the question for everybody is, what's your plan? And, you know, really write it down and think about all those different groups. Everybody's situation is so different. We didn't want to make these workshops about here's what you should do, because we really don't know what each individual situation is for their business. But what we hoped we could do is provide you with an education and understanding of the basics, give you some ideas and thoughts, and then give you a worksheet so you can put together your own plan. And of course, we also will have nice kits for you guys, and you can let us know what you'd like from the kits. Maybe you don't need signage because you're going into people's homes, but you'd like to have a PDF seal that says you're participating in the Vashon's commitment for you know, COVID-19 safety, and you know, put that on your website or in your email signatures, so that in fact people know you're taking this seriously. We were talking earlier today in the Wall Street Journal. They came out and said that people are now looking for, they want to see businesses being safe and taking it seriously. Make it very visible. Have the hand sanitizer, have the wipes, send out the survey, have something in your email that, you know, says, hey, this is how we're approaching things. We also will have signage for people if you've got a place of business and you'd like to have things like practice social distancing, wear a mask. We'll have those signage. You just need to let us know. We're even going to have social distance floor markers that say stay 6 feet apart. So we've got lots of different items that we can customize your kit with. And Sarah Deal, who's on the phone, is helping coordinate everything for the chamber. So if you get your form back to her, she can make sure that we get things together for you. Also, we have some one-off opportunities. We're looking for discounted thermometers that are touch-free to get a better price for people. And then also face shields. We're looking for a source for face shields for people in case that's the way you want to go. I know that I've found with the orchard, with Nashi Orchards, where we have people coming, we don't do tastings anymore. But what we're doing though is it's very difficult to talk about your story when you have a mask on your face. It's difficult for people to hear you, and it's difficult for you to talk. So, you know, I was thinking a face shield actually might be a great way for people to hear me communicate with them, but keep us both safe. So social distancing plus the shield. Also, we found a local vendor to do sneeze shields. This really applies to people who have retail shops or, you know, are paying, but we're going to be working with some people to install sneeze shields so that in fact they have that protection for their employees at places of business. So some examples of the signage that we're doing, they're fun, they're modern, they're bold, but you know, these will be available and you can let us know what works for you in addition to some of the things that we've put together. And then lastly, if you submit your form, give us your plan, let us know what you want for your customized kit. Sarah will be in touch with you to say, hey, here's when you can pick up your kit, what the date is and the time is. We are using Nashi North up on 107th and Co, because we're not opening that location anymore while we're in the middle of the COVID crisis. So it's a perfect place for people to drive in, grab their kits and go. And we will be doing masks, and I just want to do a special call out for masks for Vashon. They actually are making all the masks for our kits, and they're really extra. So if you have employees, you can get them, you want to have extras, because client, of course, may not have them. It'll be some extras in the kit for you to be able to use in those situations. Yeah, well, the people who are making them, they get the big props, let me tell you. Go ahead, Mary.
Rachel, in your questionnaire that you're sending out to clients, are you asking them to contact you if in the next 14 days they have any signs and symptoms of COVID-19?
Mary, we couldn't hear you that well. Could you repeat your question to Rachel?
It's because my house is on fire and my husband was burning something on the stove. The concern I have, or to help everybody, is, Rachel, your questionnaire, do you have anything in there asking your client to contact you in the next 14 days if they get any signs and symptoms of COVID-19?
Yes, I do. I have for them to contact me if they exhibit any symptoms within 14 days, or if they encounter, or I'm sorry, if they hear that someone else has and they've been in contact with them as well.
Okay.
My verbiage is much better on the survey than it is out of my mouth.
I think too, thank you for giving us this opportunity. You may think of other questions of that, please send it in. We're going to get back to you. This is what we want to do. We want to help you through this in any way we can. And we'll get any answer that we can find back to you.
Yep. And just go ahead and send those into the email at boardpresident@vashonchamber.com. Also, I have to do a shameless pitch for the website. Vashon Chamber has a whole bunch of resources on it that you can go to get information. And we certainly would be happy to answer questions. And I just want to say thank you for joining us. And also thank you, Mary, so much for taking the time to put this information together and to take so much time to help the community.
It's a pleasure.
So with that, if you guys have questions or anything, just let us know. Otherwise, be safe. And we'll be in touch about the kits. Okay? Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Oh, and the slides will be up online. Bye.
Bye.
Heidi Stair, Deborah Dartell, me,